my parents do all they could. I don't know if they did. And I don't blame them. But as parents, we don't know what the heck sometimes we're doing.
I don't.
And especially when the tension rises around that busy schedules, house activities, and we don't know all the answers. And that's why we look for answers to our problems somewhere else. And that's why I have John. I have John with me. And then, before we go further in this, again, thanks for watching the Dads Club. My name is Pablo, John. And if you do us a favor, just smash that like button, subscribe to the channel for more content, and let's just begin with this because this is a good subject. Nice. There you go.
There we go.
All right.
I'm in frame now. How am I? I'm good. I'm happy to be here.
Well, welcome back, bro.
I'm back. No, it's good. Did some family traveling.
You've been busy. I've been busy. And
yeah.
that's why we haven't been actually doing content right now, restructuring everything, right? But as I said today, and the question arises again, is did our parents do all they could?
Did they? That's a yes or no. Definitely a yes or no answer. Yes, because I think the majority of things they did, like whoop me, and I mean, those are, when you're younger, you think that's a bad thing, but now that you're older, you're like, oh, appreciate those whoopings. Definitely,
we do appreciate it. I totally appreciate it, but
some of them were not warranted, and if they were alive, I would totally tell them. But those are those things that they, and then there are a lot of things that they didn't teach me, or healthy things that allowed me to express myself, to say what's on my mind or on my heart without getting in trouble.
I think that's I've been trying to talk to John about this stuff, and before we started this show is simply that we have to see what the content is, and so we can have a little bit of context. And I let John watch the video. This video is from, and we're gonna react to the video. This video is from ABBA and Preach. These guys they're hilarious, huh?
They're super funny.
I love these guys. And somebody actually came to me and said, "Hey, you should react to these guys," because they brought up. Normally, they bring a lot of topics, culture, you name it, right? They're all over the place, but at the same time, they're very good at what they do. And not that I want to be like them, but I just want to be me. And these topics are for just the parents, and it's just a good question. Did our parents do all they could? And as you said, they did what they could. I'll be honest with you. They did what they could, and they raised us, and they provided for us. They put their life into in the line for us, and whatever you want to call it. But that they actually do everything they could, and that's exactly what we want to watch right now with these guys right here. And we're just gonna go into the topic. We're gonna react to this video, and I just want to say welcome back, bro. Appreciate you. We got coffee ready for this. Let's just go jump in, and here we go.
Did your parents do a good job? I don't want you to answer too quickly.
And then before we go into this, I just want to warn you. There's a lot of cuss. There's a lot of stuff going on, but at the same time, just look at it this way. Get the context of what we're trying to do and what we're trying to say right here. So, if you are a parent, how your kids, how your wife. Well, not your wife. Probably you need your wife to watching this. But yeah. So there's a lot of cussing. So you're warned. Anyway,
I want you to think about the question and what's your answer.
Why is
it's better when you explain it.
Okay, peep game. So this guy comes up to me, right? This guy comes up to me and it's like, "Did your parents do a good job?" And I was like, "Well, I mean, they did the best they could. And it's like, that's not what I asked you. It was like, and he said, what I mean is, I could try to perform an open heart surgery and do my best. Somebody's dying. Because even though I'm doing my best, I'm not going to do a good job because that's not what I do. Now, did your parents do a good job? And boy, that
Hey, listen, it's one of those things that, I mean, okay, the question rises again. Yeah, did they do all they could? Did they do a good job? I think just in the way everything was formed and how they were raised, in my case, it's just a lot of old thinking, how a parent should raise their kids.
Yeah.
But did that work? I in my case, it's just kind of like it scared me. I was scared of my mom, to be honest with you. Yeah. She would give me some good whippings right there, bro. But that formed my character in the sense of like I respect everyone. I respect my elders. I'm respectful in every single way possible, right? But the whipping actually worked. Mm-hmm. Yes, it worked. Could have been another way. Yes. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. No, Jamie and I we were on a road trip down to San Diego, and we were talking about this specifically where,
oh, funny.
Like, I think, in my upbringing, culture had a lot to do with it. And, because we were literally talking about how do we shape Judah to be like not just who we want him to be, but who God wants him to be. But,
right.
And we were thinking about our upbringing. Like, why weren't we allowed to say what we thought? Why weren't we allowed to say like, wow, that,
have
that
an
really,
opinion technically.
Exactly. Like that hurt me. Like, why were we never able to say that? And, a lot of that comes from culture, Filipino culture, you talk back anything, you could just be like, my arm's itching. What'd you say? Pop. Like
there's a pop over there.
And so, that's kind of what, and so they did what my parents, of course, every parent wants to do better than their parents did, but there's only so many tools, that are available, so many examples that they have, growing up where they're able to say, okay, I don't want to do that. But I think subconsciously we end up kind of doing those things. It's just a matter of like us now, the younger generation or whatever you want to call us, the ones who are now with children and trying to do better than them, like recognizing like those traits, even those like patterns. Yeah. And saying like, nope, I don't want to do that. And also saying, hey, those things did work and I'm going to continue to do that.
And that's exactly what I'm saying. Like it in my case, the whipping, it worked. It worked because it took me to a different place and I'm respectful but it created a fear on me or in me.
Yeah.
With my mom, you always want to be on her good side. In my case, you always wanted to be on my mom's good side. Yeah. So, but that I didn't feel confident enough to, like you said, when I was a teenager. Kids, they say a lot of stuff, so you got to teach them. But at the same time, not talking back with respect, saying, "Hey, I believe you going out of hand with this stuff," or why do we get to do this? So we start questioning a lot of stuff, and that's when I was like, well. I was talking to Jason in the last podcast, like, la chancla flying over you. And it's like tossing the chancla to you because you talk back. And then, like I said, I think they forgot that at some point you're gonna start, you become a man, or you become a woman now, or you become an adult. And now you start forming your own values, your own thinking and reasoning, right? So I believe there should be a respect both sides, from son, kid to parents. But at the same time, it's like, I remember my mom, I was 20 years old and she started, like yelling at me for stuff that I didn't do back then. It was my brother, but she blamed me for stuff that I didn't do. And I just said something back. It's like, well, I didn't do that. It was just a very simple answer. I didn't do that. What are you talking about? What are you saying? And then you start going into altercations with, you know, you can see my mom's anger was just like out the window. But I didn't want to go into that part and go far and her getting mad at me. So I was just like, hey, you know what? Whatever, I'll take it. I don't want to go through this. But
Well, even just this morning, like Jamie and I are just challenged this morning with Judah. Like he's waking up, he has a thought in his mind. He wants to watch a show, have breakfast, but we're trying to set the expectation like, hey, like we're going to pray first. We're going to pray before we start the day. Before we do anything, we're going to pray. And he goes, no. And we're like, excuse me? No. So he's having this little tantrum, whatever, and he starts doing, I think he's like kicking Jamie while we're in the bed, and she's telling him to stop, and he goes, you stop. And we're like, okay.
you're like, boy, don't even.
I woke up, because I was like half awake, and I shot up. I said, you will not talk to mom
like that.
And then, so there's this challenge of like, these kids are trying to find their voice.
It is good. I like that, but at the same time, you're not gonna disrespect is gonna stop that trust, right?
Yeah. So my question is like, how do we, because you got 5 kids, but I've got this one where I'm trying not to beat the living snot out of this kid because he's like testing every boundary, testing every little thing. But like, how do you? Yeah, I don't want him to grow up scared of me. No, I don't want. I want him to like. I mean, the reality is, maybe down the line we'll be like friends. And right now he calls me his best friend, which I'll take, and
we all know that right now in this season of his life, you're the dad.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with my daughters. I want them to trust me. And I actually, funny thing is, you mentioned about with Judah this morning. I actually had a conversation yesterday with the girls. We were sitting down eating dinner, and mom was feeding the babies, and we're just kind of split tasks here and there. And I asked him, I was like, hey, I'm gonna turn everything off, no TV, no iPad. So I was like, hey, let's talk about something. And then I asked him, I was like, what do you like about your mom? Oh, Juliana was like the firstborn. She was like, I like that she hugs me and gives and encourages me and blah blah blah. It's like, okay, cool. Ease up on what do you like about mom? So they almost did say the same thing, right? Yeah. And then I asked him, like, what do you don't like about your mom? And it was like, okay, let me see if I'm right? And they say, well, she yells at me when I'm not behaving. Mm-hmm. I was like, okay, do you think you deserve that? Or maybe just not yell at you, but we probably told you many times to pick up your toys, right? And she's like, well, you already, yes, she did. She told me that. I was like, okay, so you didn't listen. It's like, no, I didn't listen. Okay, so it's not, we don't want to yell at you, or not in the sense that when you raise your voice, that's for them yelling, right? They consider that yelling, not that we like.
Yeah, and I
nuts.
think that's where, not to give ourselves a pat on the back or anything, but like that's why I think we're doing a little better is like, we're constantly telling Judah, we don't want to give you pow-pows. No. We don't want to put you on thinking times, but we have to if, and so I feel like we're asking a lot of questions now. Like, why do you think I put you on thinking time?
Yeah.
Why do you think you got that pow-pow? Because I didn't listen. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
so
you're getting it. So
it's like I was talking to somebody this morning. You set the expectations, right? It's the same way with God. God set the expectations. Like you as a leader, if you go to the epistles, he lay out the expectations of a leader, the leadership, right? If you want to be an elder, okay, you got to be a man of one wife. You got to be clean. You don't have to be drink wine, blah blah. You name it. Yeah. All these expectations and set yourself apart, right? Mm-hmm. It's the same thing with us. We as parents, if we don't put parameters and we don't set the expectations and lay them down, what do you think your kids are going to do?
Right.
They're going to go everywhere, right? Mm-hmm. Now, you're going to see when you come out, in the refrigerator, we set up a chart list for them to do. And if they don't do it, they don't get a star. So it was like, okay, so they like the stars. And we started last week or something like that. Yeah. And they go every single day. And they start like, oh, I'm going to do my bed today. And it's like, oh, okay. So I think it's working. We don't have to raise our voices in order for you to understand. It's like, okay, let's just take this as a game. and it's working so far. It's working for Esme, which is the middle child now. Is she's following the current. She's following the dog. The Juliana and Isabel, which are the oldest, and I think it's working, and it's gonna set a parameter for the future for the little babies in my case. So, but yeah, and I mean, you as a parent, sometimes there's a lot of noise. You need a little bit of quiet, and I think that comes with you setting expectations for your kids. So if you want to live a good life, what did I say? Proverbs says that if you lay the expectations to your kids, you're gonna have peace,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah. Well, and then going back to, the tools and what my parents had,
Yeah.
they were always working too.
yeah,
They're like grinding to make sure that we're staying in our house, that we've got everything that we needed. And, as we're all grinding too, we're
Yeah.
all doing our best, but I think we're also, the next generation now where we're like, we've got to make sure we're present. We
Right.
got to make sure that they hear us, feel us.
because mental health is a big thing.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, it's a hard question to say, did they do a good job? Did they, you want to say yes, because there's, you're an adult now, there's no fear of getting whooped, but it's like, yeah, like there's so many great things. And then there are like some of these things that like were traumatic for me, where I got beat for no reason for things my sisters did, where I'm like
That's exactly
on
what I
my
know.
deathbed getting beat. Like I'm waking up like, what is happening right now? Why am I getting beat? And so those
Where's my bacon?
sorta-
Where's my bacon?
sort of those traumatic things that stick with you, where you're like, okay, like you recognize now as an adult, you're like, I'm not ever doing that ever. And so those are those things I think that sets us up. Yeah, there are things we didn't like that our parents did, but it helps us, in saying, putting our foot down, in breaking any sort of like pattern or generational kind
Right,
of thing,
right.
even cultural thing, where we're like, I'm not doing that with my kid. Absolutely not.
And I think it goes back to what I said is, different generations, they have different traumas, right? Our trauma was like, okay, I'm carrying all this from different generations, from my parents' parents, and then it comes down to me now. They're doing the same thing they did with them when they were kids, but how am I gonna fix this stuff? How am I gonna allow this to be fixed? And that's one of the things I was having a conversation with somebody, is like, how do you gonna initiate a conversation with your dad or your mom when they're just all like, no, you got to do what I said you got to do, right?
Yeah.
We're not dictators. First of all, we're not dictators. We shouldn't be dictators.
Yeah, and I don't think that was their intention either, but there is like a threshold of like,
Right.
I'm stressing, like there's like stressors that we didn't understand, as kids. There are things that there was mental health and like all these things that they didn't have, they didn't have the ability to work on,
Right.
and traumas that they never got to deal with, that, and they're all trying to do their best. And so it's like, yeah, that's,
Let's go back to the video really quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, cause it's true.
I'm going to say this. I think as kids, especially immigrants, we have an instinctual and cultural demand to protect our parents because they've given so much. They traveled from far. They sacrificed a lot of things. We feel the need to protect them, and that includes criticism. And I understand it. And I want to make this clear when I ask this question. I'm not telling you to not be grateful.
No,
I'm not telling you to not respect them.
that's not what I asked.
I'm not telling you not to look up to them and said, you persevere a lot. And I respect that. That's not what I'm saying.
That's not the question.
What I'm saying is,
What you saying?
through your upbringing, were you given the optimal circumstances or the adequate baseline to be able to do well, to be able to have a life of a child that you feel is fit? And it's interesting because people will say, oh, no, I will never say anything. But you notice the life that they try to give their kids is substantially different than what their parents gave them. The reason being is because they understand instinctively some of the things circumstantially that were bad in their upbringing, and so they don't want to transfer that onto their kids. Our parents brought us into this world through no desire of our own.
You know, the thing is, it goes back to this, bro. It goes back to this. And yeah, they don't want to give us the same thing they went through, but unconsciously they did, because they didn't deal with the traumas. They didn't deal with all the issues. They didn't deal with the problems that initiated all this character forming part of the life. And then they didn't want to transmit it to me. I understand, but at the same time, they did it unconsciously.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I was talking to my dad. I had the opportunity to talk to my dad, and I just lay down all this stuff respectfully, and I said, hey, you know what? I thank you. First of all, I thank him for, you know, he was a good provider. He never actually lacked. We never lacked food in our table and stuff like that, because he was grinding it. But at the same time, I told him that you never taught us how to budget. You never sit down and say, hey, now that you are 18, I'm going to start, you know, give you, this money that you're earning at work, blah, blah, blah. You need a budget. You need to do this. You need to do that. It's like, he scratched his head. My dad's like very scratching head person when he's like thinking about it. And he's like, oh, you kind of like, he's telling me you're right. I never had the time to sit down with you guys. And all of a sudden he expressed it and he said it. Yeah, you're right. I never had the time, or not that had the time. I never took the time to sit down with you guys and just teach you stuff like, you know, hey, how to deal with life, how to deal with problems, how to deal with all the stuff you had to learn. I had to learn it in a different way, like you did, right? Because our parents were working, our parents were doing, they were busy, right? So, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think even when in your, you know, in what you're saying, you know, you're able to. I think it's release for you, for both of you, really, because you know you're at probably at the age where you're not relying on your dad anymore, but you're able to just say, hey, like,
and we're talking about 18 years old, 20, you're becoming an adult, right?
So you're able to say like, hey, you know, you didn't really teach me this. You know, and there's nothing that's going to change like anything. That doesn't really change anything. Yeah, but, you know, there is a freedom in saying it for you, a freedom in saying, you know, a freedom in almost hearing it. You know, it's for your dad, I'm sure wasn't easy to hear, but he's able to say, oh, you know, you're right. You know, I hear what you're saying. And so, you know, for us, you know, and for me specifically, and for those whose parents aren't around, where you're not able to have that conversation,
right?
You know, that's also very
it's challenging.
It's challenging. There's a stunt in growth for those of us who don't have that parent in the house, or you know, people who've never even met their dads, or you know, there's a stunt in growth somewhere, and to be able to say, you know, man, this was really messed up. Like I wasn't able to properly deal with this and actually confront the source of where that was, you know, where that comes from. And so, you know, I was fortunate to be able to have some conversations with my mom before she passed, but for my dad, he left so early that it was like, you know,
you had to deal with a lot of stuff, his past, deal with your feelings and how I cannot imagine that.
And he, you know, you know, and so there's a lot of things, you know, you want to say as a child,
right? You
know, especially when you're an adult child, you know, who, you know, and even now I want to be able to say like, you know, and that's where I think it's healthy to have people who you have accountability with, who you can just share your heart and your feelings with, support, to be able to say like, man, this is where. That was a really traumatic time, or this was a really, or you know, I wasn't able to be taught this or that. These are skills that like I did not learn from you, that I had to learn the hard way, but from myself or from somewhere else. Like, you know, there's freedom in that. And as someone who believes in God and someone who has found freedom in my relationship with God, because I'm able to say like, here's the things that were traumatic for me, and
we are able to we're able to deal with those traumas.
Yeah. We have a way of, I don't have my earthly father to say like, to release this, but I'm able to release it through my relationship with my heavenly Father, with God, and then those who God have put in my way to be able to like lay these things on. And so that for me was challenging, because I'm 18, 17, 18, 19, going into my 20s even, where I'm just like, I've got so many questions, I've got so many,
it's like you want to raise your hand. It's like, I got a question.
Yeah.
Can somebody actually answer
and then,
I get it.
And then to not, and then you have all these other, I'll say personally, I've had all these fatherly, figures around me who were trying to say like, John, don't do this. John, don't do that. John, where I was just like, you're not my dad. I'm not going to hear it. And so that there was a big challenge there, but
it's just shutting people out of your life.
Yeah. And that's where that danger is. And so that's where I think we can hold on to, and I think this is, now we're kind of circling into where forgiveness, comes into play.
Yep.
And I think that's the name of this video that we're watching, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe let's get to the video, and then we'll get to that point.
They made that choice, right? And as a result, it is also the responsibility to do the best that they can in giving us a life. But through circumstances, and my mom, I hold her on the highest pedestal. My mom is my homie. She's my mom. She's my confidant in a lot of ways. I love her to death. But I can also recognize many ways in which her parenting was terrible. But it's not entirely her fault. Even though her parenting was terrible, it's not entirely her fault. Her circumstances, war-torn country, didn't have an education, came here, didn't speak language, just trying to piece it together, doing it on her own. I understand everything. And it makes me respect her. But it doesn't change the fact that, as a result, I didn't have any guidance. As a result, I had to do so much on my own. You get me? And that's still my road dog. I'll give everything to her. But it doesn't change the circumstances. And the reason why I'm saying this is that when you start to look at it, we are so protective of our parents, we haven't even given us a chance to forgive them or to potentially criticize them in ways that can make them better. Because believe it or not, my mom has improved. She's become a much better parent over the years. I'm one of 7, middle child. She has. I've watched her change. But that didn't come from just being like, ooh, go queen, you can never. No, there were some tough conversations that had to happen. There was some self-reflection, be like, yo, this is f***ed up. There's no reason that I've been raising myself for these last 5 years. It doesn't make sense. I'm telling what? But that's the circumstance, the cards I was dealt with. I'm not going to sit here and complain about it, but we are going to have certain conversations so that we can fix things for the future. But
that's important, bro. That's so important. And he's saying we don't give the chance to. Because we blame, as in my case, I used to blame my parents for everything. I used to blame it's because of them. It's because of this, and this. They didn't do this, and this, and this, and this. Well, deal with it.
Yeah.
And then we learn so much from living life and making mistakes and getting up again and just do the best you can to make sure you don't go the same way. But like Abba was saying, we don't give the chance to not even forgive our parents in that sense. And that I think in my life, I give that chance, and I give myself a chance to speak with my parents and to speak with my mom and dad and say, hey, I'm sorry that I feel this way, but I think I need to forgive you for this type of stuff. And then they didn't get it at the beginning. It was like a super weird conversation with my parents.
Yeah.
That their eyes were just wide open as soon as I told them all this stuff. And it was like, my wife was right next to me, by the way. And we were having this conversation, and she had to also say things that she went through with her parents, as you know. So so my parents can actually understand and have a different perspective of what I was saying, because for them it was kind of like, oh, you're attacking me. And it's funny because I had to tell them, like, I'm your son. I'm not, I don't mean to attack you.
Yeah.
I don't mean to hurt you or something like that, but I need to make sure I gotta let this go before I continue with this. And this was actually before we had the baby, so more than 7-8 years ago. So
Yeah, no, and it's hard because, yeah, as the children, you're not trying to say I'm not grateful. I'm, like what they were saying on the video, like this isn't us saying you shouldn't be grateful, you shouldn't be this and that. Like that goes without saying, I think, but we have to say that, especially when you're talking to your parents about this, like of course I'm grateful, but like you also have to know like where this was hurtful for
Yes.
you. So I think this is all, based
it's a
around,
weird conversation going back to that moment.
it's weird. It absolutely is, but it's that
Necessary.
it's necessary for like you just said, moving forward, being able to grow, because if where there's unforgiveness is where we, when we hold on to these hurts and these traumas, and there's no unforgiveness, there's a stunting in our growth.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, we put a roadblock in the middle of. We can see the grow in front of us. We can see the exit. We can see the way out. But because we have this roadblock that we cannot forgive, it's important to let go.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to let go. We have to give a chance ourselves and to our parents at the same time to forgive them, to let go, to move on, to create a new relationship. I think most of the time we have this expectation of what should have been,
Yeah.
instead of what it is right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't let that just take place because we haven't forget what happened.
Yeah.
Oh, you whipped me so bad that I cannot forgive you for what you did. It's like, well, how do you gotta let things go? But you contradict yourself in a lot of ways. Ourselves, not you, just not.
Generally.
In general, we contradict ourselves in a lot of ways because we want to move on. We want to be the best, but we don't want to let go. We want to move on. We want to be the best husband, but we don't. We keep on having this same behavior, the same habits, and we don't want to let go. We want to be free. We want our kids to be better than us, but you can't stop watching porn. You want to be a good steward of your money, but you can't stop spending money. So it's one of those things. Is like, okay, what is it? Do you want to be free or you don't?
Yeah. Well, in that video, I think what rings absolutely true, and even as they were saying it, I was able to even kind of remember like the last, even few months of my mom being around, because between my mom and my dad, my mom was the harshest. She was like,
Yeah,
we
same
were so scared of her. My dad was like, he was the gentle one. He was, and when he had laid down, but most of the time it was like, we can have fun with dad. We can't have fun with mom.
Right.
But, even in the later, the last, few months of my mom being around, like our relationships, my relationship, my sister's relationship with her was like it was a lot deeper than it was.
You think it was a lot of healing?
There's absolutely a lot of healing, because I would definitely say my sisters and I, we had the chance, whether she wanted to hear it or not, we had to have those conversations with her. And I think my sisters had it more than, and I would hear my sisters even say, like, because my sisters, I mean, I love you, Jen, I love you guys, but y'all were crazy.
There's a but.
I was crazy, but you guys were crazy. And I've heard them say like, yeah, we had, now that I'm a parent, like I totally get it. I totally get why like this and that, but that wasn't that didn't go without saying like, but mom, like there's so many things that you did and so many like expectations that you have on us even now as adults, like, yeah, there was still this thought or understanding of like we still couldn't say how we felt without her getting offended, and that was then like towards the later like months in her life, like towards the end of her life, where she was like she was getting it.
Now I understand why.
And she's and she was a lot more understanding, and nobody knows when you're gonna go, but I definitely think the Lord had a lot to do with that healing in terms of like being able to receive, being able to hear, being able to understand. But I think whether she was gonna receive it or not,
I didn't.
for myself, for my sisters, we had to say it to release ourselves.
And
You
I
what I'm
didn't know.
saying?
I didn't know that actually this conversation was going to lead to forgiveness because, like I said, I had another idea, and I think God is doing something different right here because
Yeah.
at the end of it, I think it's letting things go. It's letting the offenses and the hurt to let your hurt start be the healing part, right? Let the process of being heal take place. Just let it go. What you want to be free? Like the Bible says, like the truth will set you free. And the only truth is that if you don't let things go, if you don't forgive, and even the Bible says that we ask for forgiveness to God, but we, in the same way we ask for forgiveness, we got to forgive. Forget and forgive, right? And I think, like I said, in the last days of my grandpa, him and my dad, they had a little confrontation years before, and it went totally to splitting the family, right?
Yeah.
My mom's family, and it was hard to me to see that, and it took a lot. And I'm opening up to everyone because, like, when you say that you gotta just marry one person, you don't just marry that person; you marry the whole family.
The whole family, all of them.
And you marry the crazy, you marry the passive, you marry the happy, the outgoing, whatever. All these characters in your wife's family and your significant other could influence the way you see your relationship.
Yeah.
So and I'm going with this because it was there was a lot of issues back in the day. It was not personal. It was more of a religious beliefs, and it hurt my parents. It hurt my dad. It hurt my grandfather, to the point that before he died, he felt, and he told me that he forgave my dad, and he asked for forgiveness too. And we don't want to go to that point. We don't want to wait until that point. But man, I didn't know it was gonna be this way. I didn't know we were gonna be talking about forgiveness though. Jeez, man. But we gotta let it go. Now the only thing is, are we gonna be able to how do I say this? Are we gonna be able to let things go according to what you feel against your your mom? And I'm not saying that if you were molested by your father, or if you were molested by an uncle or whatever, but if you were molested by your father, I'm not saying you have to respect that, because the Bible says honor your father and your mother, but you cannot honor somebody who dishonor your body. You cannot. You can forgive.
Yeah.
Right? What do you think of that?
Absolutely. No, I think there are a lot of examples, and there are a lot of examples in the Bible, and again, if you're new to Dad's Club, or we reference the Bible a lot because there's a lot of truth in that, and we always want to provide truth. We always want to bring what is true to the conversation, and so you don't have to. You don't have to be best friends with somebody who's like literally who's raped you, molested you, whatever. You don't. But for your own sake, for your own like sanity, for again to unblock any growth, that you're capable of. I think
your full potential. That's
your
what you're
full
talking
potential.
about. Yeah.
Exactly. There is. Forgiveness is almost a must, because you harbor you harbor so much. I don't know. It could be hate. It could be whatever these feelings are. These are feelings that you hold in towards somebody that, whether they deserved it or not, whether they meant to hurt you or not, whatever it is, it's not healthy for you. It's not healthy. It's mostly not healthy for you to hold on to these things, because in the long run, in any relationship that you're going to have, it's going to affect that relationship, because you're holding something against somebody else and you're not completely able to give yourself freely to your other relationships, or even to your relationship with God. And so that's where, and I'm not even getting into, any Bible verses or any deep anything.
But it's common sense, though.
It's just common sense. There's something like emotionally, mentally, but also even physically freeing when you forgive somebody, when you like release, hurts and think, that somebody that you're holding towards somebody. And so that's what I would just, again, we didn't intend to go down this road, but I think we definitely, somebody needs to hear this, because it's one of those things, just like trauma. I think it's all connected, where you're hurt and you don't know, if you don't have the answer on like how to deal with that hurt, or it's going to eat you up.
You gotta open
destroy
up.
you. Yeah.
You gotta open up. And like I said, it's not that you're gonna open up your entire life to somebody, but you need to make sure who do you gonna open up for and with, and it needs to have a purpose. I said it many times. You touch something very important, that is like about relationships. You cannot. I always say that the baggage that you have, and I said it in previous episodes, the baggage that you have, you're going to carry it into the relationship, and it's going to amplify the issue. It's going to amplify. I mean, we can say that in a man's case, right? In general, not just speaking for somebody else, or just me or somebody else, but in general, if you are a promiscuous and person, and you watch a lot of porn, you consume a lot of porn and stuff like that, and you feeling that getting married is going to stop, no, it's not going to stop. Yeah. It's just going to be worse. Now, the problem with that is that you even going to create another problem, because biblically, the Bible says once you already thought about it, you already cheat on your wife.
Yeah.
So let's be honest. How many times and how many men, and this goes for the pastors, this goes for the leaders, this goes to every single one who think the Bible is not clear in this stuff. It is super clear.
Absolutely.
It doesn't mean you need to have a sexual relationship or a physical relationship in order for you to cheat. No, you cheat in the moment.
It starts in the mind.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You already thought about it. Mm-hmm. It's incredible, because now it's like, oh snap, just because because you thought about it, it becomes actually real in your life.
Yeah. Well, that's why it's,
it is, bro.
We got to be able to take control of our thoughts, take control. And that's what we can do.
I don't think we can't. It's only God, and through the relationship with God, who can actually hold our thoughts, because we're always going to be that person.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's so. Yeah, and I'll say this, and we'll probably wrap up soon. But the more we hold on to things, and I'm even looking at where Jamie and I are getting rid of a lot of Judah's old toys. It's taking up a lot of space. We don't have a lot of space as it is, but we recognize he's not touched that in years, since he was a little 1-year-old. He hasn't. Right. He's 3 now. Why are we holding on to it? It's that kind of that sort of concept of
not to be wasteful.
Why also, there is space that's being taken up
by that toy.
By that toy,
for 2 years.
Yeah, and so it's why are we holding on to it? Sentimental value, that all those things are great, but to Judah, if he's not seeing it,
right?
And so and this is kind of a side thing where we've put everything in a box, and we're we're gonna go take it to there's a resource family center for those who adopt. Like basically, they give away like free toys, all this.
Well,
kind
let
of
me
stuff.
know where that is. I'm gonna drop a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and so we put it in a box. We put it outside the door. And we didn't. It's still
Oh,
sitting there. So he's walking
no.
by it every time, and he's like, "Ooh." And he's picking it out, taking it out. And so I think there's a lot of depth in that as well, because like, yeah, there's toys, there's things that take up space, but if you haven't gotten rid of it, you're going back to it. You're picking it up and you're like, ooh, I remember that, and
It triggers something, right?
yeah. And so that's where I think what we're saying is, and what that video is saying is, yeah, we can point the fingers and say like, you didn't do this great, you didn't, but I think when it all comes down to it is the forgiveness part, because there's nothing now that could change anything.
Right.
For us now, we're like approaching you're in your 40, but I'm approaching my
I'm 41 actually.
I'm approaching my 40s, and it's like if God were to bring my parents back from the grave and I'm able to look them in the face and say like, hey, this sucked. Like, it's not going to change anything, but it will change something in my heart.
Yeah.
It will change something in my mind. Something in the way, to be able to just release that, from somebody, whether you're able to or like actually verbally, say it to them or not, but to release somebody and say, you know what? I don't need that taking up space. I want to do better with my children, with my relationships, with all that. I'm just going to let that go so
That's a
that
good analogy,
I
bro.
can be, I can be free for who my spouse needs me to be, for who my children
Your
need me to be.
relationship, everything.
I don't want to be, and I want to model that freedom for my children.
Right.
Model that for Judah to be like, hey, you don't have to, this is how you forgive somebody. And I can't tell him.
You cannot teach him that if you don't actually practice.
Exactly.
It.
I can't say, hey, this is how you forgive somebody, but yet I'm secretly like, man, I really did not, I'm still super really upset and hurt. It's not the same.
And
It doesn't translate.
I think you look at when you see that person, when you see the person you have hurt against, or you have something against it, and when you see it, it's kind of weird though. You act weird.
You don't forget, but I think you're
No, especially if you didn't forgive or you haven't even talked about it. It's kind of like it's kind of weird.
And that, I
Don't
mean,
make it
I
weird.
think that also relates to forgiving yourself.
Right.
Also, because you had to look at your mug in the mirror like every single day, like, and if you've killed, no, I'm not gonna say that,
Bro, I have something.
But if you've done something so detestable, and I'm sure we all have stuff in our closets where we're just like, man, I can't believe I did that, and I want to push that all the way back. I was just talking to somebody
You
recently.
start smacking yourself.
I was just telling somebody recently, like, yeah, we go back, and there's a part where the Lord takes it because he uses everything, and that's what makes him so awesome. So he takes everything that we think is
Turns it.
detestable, is unforgivable, is all this. He turns it to where we're like, okay, somebody else is dealing with that. I know how to deal with that. I know how to say, hey, let that go, forgive yourself, move on,
And help this person.
and heal, and learn how to heal. Yeah. So learning how to even forgive yourself is, because I can honestly say it's not the truth, but I can say like, I don't deserve anything that I have right now. I don't deserve my wife. I don't deserve this awesome kid that I have. This where I'm at in my life right now. I can say that, but I've been able to forgive myself to say like, okay, you messed up. You did some things that I can say like, yeah, is because of my parents, but they didn't, they couldn't physically do what I did in order for me to have that. So, you could point the fingers, do all that, but at the end of the day, you got to forgive your parents. You got to forgive those who hurt you. You got to forgive yourself.
They probably not gonna ask you for forgiveness, so don't expect to hear that as oh, forgive me too.
Yeah.
Don't expect that. Just go and do what you need to do, and look at them in the eyes and say, forgive me, or I forgive you, and forgive me for everything I've done, and just move on. Don't expect that answer back, or don't expect it. Probably it's not going to happen, because now you're going to hurt yourself. Like, oh, you didn't ask for forgiveness. Like, what do you expect?
Yeah.
You were expecting something else. But let's just watch the last part right here, and it's hilarious, because Preach, which is the guy on the left in your screen,
Yeah.
he's gonna say that he gives his parents a B minus. What he, is that what he
He gets
said?
a report card, yeah.
Well, let's just listen.
Letter grade.
Let's see what he says right here.
You can learn to maybe potentially even fix.
Fucking do it. I don't care. But yeah, like I'd give her a B minus because overall my parents they did a good job.
Let
but
me
they
just go
did
back
some.
right here.
You gave them a grade there.
There you go.
And so that's what I mean. You can learn to maybe potentially even fix those if you have that conversation. So that's what I want to say.
That's
Yeah,
important
no,
conversation.
I had to. Me overall, I'd have to give my parents a B minus because
You gave them a grade.
yeah.
I ain't even mad at you. You took it to the next level.
I'd give him a B minus because my mom hearing that would be livid because my mom was a grade A student.
Talking about triggering somebody.
On Mother's Day,
Head up and report card with B's and C's.
and just for the extra junk, don't be serious, but just sorry about that.
Oh no, man! Yeah.
You're not actually gonna do anything with it.
Yeah, I'll do it. I'll fucking do it. I don't care. But yeah, like I'd give her a B minus because overall my parents they did a good job, but they did some pretty fucking shit. Caribbean people and people from immigrants have a propension sometimes to raise the way they raise their kids is very messed up. You know, they raise by insulting. Insult people. They insult. That's. They say things that are crazy. I remember my parents used to say a couple of times, "Yo, I don't know what I did to have you.
Oh,
I don't know what
snap.
I did to have you." Funny story is,
What do you mean? I don't know what I did.
I don't know what I did to deserve you, to have you, like to have, not to deserve you, but well,
Well, hold up. So explain how it happens.
my
I
dad
don't
was
know
always
what I
saying like
did
whenever he was
wrong
pissed
to
off,
have you, that-
what,
yeah,
what,
pretty
what
much
did I
what he's
do?
saying.
What did I do? Oh God, what did I do to get you?
To deserve you as
To
a
deserve
child.
you as a child, yeah. And it's crazy because I was not doing drugs. I wasn't in no gangs. I was not doing that. I wasn't none of that. Never been to prison. At that time, I was not even drinking alcohol. You understand what I'm saying?
Hey, let's just go. I mean, let me just go back to this. Yeah, no, it's just like, okay. At the end, we're just gonna close with this.
Yeah.
Words, the way you speak to your kids, the way you say things, the way you contextualize everything, it's important.
It's important. They catch it all. They're little sponges.
Let's just be honest. Between you and I, recently because I didn't contextualize something and express it the ways it didn't sound like that way, but you understood it the opposite way. Like this morning, right? We said we were gonna record, and I sent you the link, and it was like, oh, I thought we were gonna record in your house. I was like, oh, okay, sure, just come over. Like, it was my fault. It was my fault. I didn't tell you exactly. Hey, Anyway, so. But I think words are important, and the way you say it and the way you contextualize, not contextualize it.
That's a different subject.
Yeah, that's a different
podcast.
And just the way you say it and the way you mean it, it has to be important how you context that into your relationship with your kids, your relationship with even your spouse. Sometimes, your spouse get offended. In my case, I said something. It was like, oh, I didn't mean it that way. He's like, but you hurt me. I was like, oh.
We always don't mean it that way, okay?
We don't. No. We love you guys. We love you all the time. We don't want to hurt you.
That way it didn't.
Anyway. Sorry. We can actually say that. But yeah, we're just going to finish with this. And listen, just the way you say it, it's important. Just how you say it, it's important. So forgiving our parents, it's not easy, but it is necessary for our own healing in growth, as we said. Just sum all this up. And it meant letting things go. It means letting things go, and the resentment and anger and the blame and holding into all this stuff for so long. So it it actually means acknowledging the humanity, their limitations, accepting my parents the way they are. And acceptance it's important. So, but we're just gonna leave with this. If you have a chance, if you have an opportunity to speak with your parents and they're alive, and if you were hurt by them physically or emotionally or I don't know, like in every single way possible that you can think of being hurt, I think it's time for you just to say something.
Yeah, absolutely. As
I
long
mean,
as
you can tell them I give you a B minus. I give you a B minus.
Hand them a report
Trigger
card.
them. Trigger them.
Hand them a report card.
In Mother's Day or in Father's Day, you can actually say, "Hey, here's your B minus.
Go ahead and review that.
You get $25 for B minus."
Yeah, go ahead and review that. There's no. Yeah, this is just how it is.
It is how it is. It is how it is, bro. Like we have to be better. We strive to get better. We try to get things out of the way so we can make sure we continue with this stuff. But hey, guys, forgiveness is a choice. And if you feel and if you actually want to get things better in your life and not actually doing the same way your parents been doing it, just forgive them and move on. Move on.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. That's pretty much it. We just want to thank you for watching That's Club. My name is Pablo. John, he's back. And we just want to thank you for watching, for listening. And remember to smash the like button and subscribe to this channel so you stay current with our content. And as how are we gonna say bye?
But yeah, no, like Pablo said, we're here, like, comment, subscribe. We're here for you guys. And when it comes to especially dads, specifically dads.
Yeah.
But everybody else who wants to subscribe, absolutely. But this content is for you, to help you. It also helps us, as we're even able to talk about things
To understand, actually.
Yeah. And to go over content like this, where other dads or other folks are highlighting issues, we're able to, talk about it. And that's what this is about. Just informing you guys and giving you all tools to be better.
I want to be better.
I want tools to be better.
I want to be better. I want to be better.
Yeah.
And you going into therapy sometimes is expensive though. So how about you have a relationship with God? That just gonna start with a lot of people. Anyway, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Peace out. Finally, actually split the screen right here. Anyway, I'm sweating now.
Ooh.
Ew.